This is 1.6, writing absolute value functions. In this section, we're going to be taking a graph of an absolute value function and coming up with the function equation that we can type into Desmos. So, in general, our function equations are going to have a number in front, our absolute value, minus a number, plus or minus another number. And so we're going to fill in the first blank, the second blank, and the third blank. We're going to start by finding the vertex. The vertex is that sharp point, in this case down at the bottom. And so if I try and find the coordinate of the vertex, it looks like 0, -4. Well, the 0 is going to go in the green blank, and the -4 is going to go in the blue blank. So when we start to write this, we're going to say y equals, I'm going to leave some space just in case, absolute value of x minus 0 minus 4. The yellow blank is going to be the slope. So we're going to always look at the positive right-hand side. And when I look at the positive right-hand side, I go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So that, my slope, is up 1 over 1. And that's going to go where the yellow number is. Well, 1 over 1 is 1, so I'm just going to put a 1 there. And I can clean up my answer because I don't really need to write that 1 in front, because we usually don't. I don't need to write the 0 because minus 0 doesn't change anything. And so I can write this as y equals absolute value of x minus 4. What I would recommend you do after you've found what you think is the equation of the line is put this in Desmos and see if it matches the graph that you were given. Let's try the next one. So for the next one, I'm going to start by finding the vertex. So the vertex is right there at -2, 0. And again, we've got green and blue. I'm also going to find the slope. So for slope, I'm going to go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So it looks like 1 over 1, or 1, goes in that first yellow blank. And so I'm going to use that model again. Let me scroll up a little bit so we can see it. And I'm going to say y equals 1 absolute value of x minus -2, which is going to make it a positive, plus 0. I can clean that up because I don't need the 1. 1 times anything is just the anything part. So I get x plus 2, and then I don't need the plus 0. If you look at both of these, we can also check, because we know that this -4 in the first example is a shift down 4, and we can see that in our graph. It shifts down 4. And then the plus 2 in this second example is a shift to the left 2, and we can see that our graph shifts to the left 2. Next example. So we're going to start by finding the vertex. So the vertex on this one looks like it is at 0, 1. So we've got green blank and blue blank. Then we're also going to look for the slope. We're always going to use the right-hand side of our absolute value. So I'm going to go down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. Because we're going down, that's a negative. So it's -1 over 1, which is -1. So that's going to go in our yellow blank. So we're going to say y equals yellow, absolute value of x minus green, plus blue. And if I clean this up, I can say y equals, I don't need to write the 1, I can just write the negative sign. And then absolute value of x, I don't need the 0, and then plus 1. And again, if we look at this, that negative sign is a reflection. So we've got a graph that goes upside down. It's that upside down V shape. And then a plus 1 means it shifted up 1, and we can see that the graph shifted up 1. Next example, we're going to start with the vertex. And that vertex looks like it's at 3, -1. Then we're going to also look at the slope. And it looks like we go up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. So I made a little staircase there. And that's 1/1, which is 1. So we've got our yellow number, our green number, and our blue number. So I'm going to go ahead and say y equals yellow, absolute value of x minus green, plus or minus blue. If we clean that up, we don't need the 1 in front because it's 1 times the absolute value. That's not going to change anything. So we've got x minus 3 in the absolute value and a -1 outside, which matches with what we know about transformations. The -3 is a shift to the right 3, so we went right 3. And then the -1 is a down 1, so we went down 1. Next example, I can already tell looking at this one that we're going to have something going on with the slope because it's wider than what we're used to. So let's start with the vertex. The vertex is at 0, 0, so it didn't move anywhere. The slope looks like we start at 0, 0 and go up 1, but over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. So it looks like 1/2 is our slope. So we've got yellow, green, and blue. We're going to say y equals 1/2, absolute value of x minus 0 plus 0. We don't need to add and subtract all of those zeros, so we can just say y equals 1/2, absolute value of x. Okay, and that 1/2, we can tell, is a compression because it's made our graph less narrow, so it's widened it out. Looking at this next example, that graph looks narrower than the ones we've been dealing with. And it looks like it's upside down, so we're going to be looking for those things. So we'll start with the vertex. And the vertex looks like it is at -3, 4. The slope, we're going to use the right-hand side, so I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1 to get to that next grid line. So it looks like down 1, 2, 3, and over 1. So down 3, right 1, which gives us a slope of -3. And we're going to say y equals -3, absolute value of x minus a -3, which is really a plus, and then plus 4. Okay, and again, once you've got what you think is your answer, type it into Desmos and see if Desmos looks like the graph that you've been given. For the next page, now we're going to do inequalities. So inequalities start the same way as an equality. We're going to start off by finding the vertex. So in this case, the vertex is down here at 2, -3. We're also going to find the slope, just like we did before. So this slope, it looks like up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So we're going to be dealing with 1 over 1, which is 1. And so this time when I start, I'm not going to put an equal sign because it's an inequality. It's got shading on it. So I'm going to leave a little space, and I'm going to put 1 absolute value of x minus 2 minus 3. And then we're going to look at the shading. So did we shade up from the vertex or did we shade down from the vertex? Well, it looks like we shaded up So we'll say shade up is either going to be greater than or it's going to be greater than or equal to. Shade down is going to be less than or equal to. So in this case, we shaded up. So I know it's going to be a greater than. I see a dashed line instead of a solid line. So solid line is the or equal to. Dashed line is going to be strictly greater. So this is going to be on my dashed line. And if I clean this up, I'm going to say y is greater than. I don't need the 1. And I'm going to say absolute value of x minus 2 minus 3. Let me make that a 3. Next one, right away I see shade down and I see a solid line. So that's going to help me with my inequality. I'm going to start by finding my vertex. So the vertex looks like it's at -3 up 4. Then I'm going to look at my slope. To do the slope, I go down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. I'm hitting grid lines there. So that's -1 over 1, which gets me a -1. So I'm going to say y. I'm going to leave a blank. I'm going to put -1 absolute value of x plus 3 because it's a negative plus 4. And then I'm going to think about my inequalities. I'm shading down, so I've got a less than. I've got a solid line, so I'm going to have an or equal to. Okay, so this right here is shade down and solid line. Okay. Let's try one more. So right away I see shading down and I see a dashed line, so I'm keeping that in the back of my brain. I'm going to write down my vertex. So it's down here, looks like 1 comma -3. My slope. So let's see, I go up 1, I don't see a grid line. I go up 2, I see a grid line. So up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So that's going to be 2 over 1 or 2. So I'm going to start to write this out. I'm going to say 2 absolute value of x minus 1 minus 3. It's shade down, so I'm going to use a less than. And it's a dashed line, so I'm not going to put an or equal to. So that is shade down dashed line.